Well, a bunch of people in Oregon are definitely excited about free money, but unfortunately, you're going to miss out on this one unless you qualify. How do you
Mm,
qualify? Well, you can't be a U.S. citizen. This
wow.
money's going to go $30,000 towards first-time homebuyers who aren't currently citizens of the United States, which brings us a lot of questions.
Well,
Andrew,
moving on to the next topic, I think it's perfectly aligned with what we just brought up here. Is now Kamala Harris's proposal, which would need to get approval from Congress should she become president. But did you hear about the $25,000 that she's going to be giving away to first-time homebuyers in the U.S.? And it's not, and they haven't said yet whether they have to be U.S. citizens.
you know, I've heard about it a little bit. I think I'm a little biased, just for the record. We just bought a property. And so if I find out that in 2025 people get $25,000, I'm
Yeah,
just going to be a hater. I'm not going to
yeah.
be reasonable and put forth any good faith arguments about it.
3 balls, 2 strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to the Full Count. Welcome back to the Full Count podcast. We have major update from the Federal Reserve. They are signaling they are going to cut rates, like Chris and I both had explained that that's what we thought, that's what we predicted, right, Chris? And we are
Yes,
also
sir.
going to talk about New York Yankees, Jazz Chisholm is probably going to buy some real estate. And then in Oregon, they're giving out $30,000, but there's a major catch that we'll be explaining. Chris, what's the catch with Oregon? I mean, they're giving out $30,000 of first-time home buyers. I imagine a bunch of people out there in that state are extremely excited, but what's the catch?
Well, a bunch of people in Oregon are definitely excited about free money, but unfortunately, you're going to miss out on this one unless you qualify. How do you
Mm,
qualify? Well, you can't be a U.S. citizen. This
wow.
money's going to go $30,000 towards first-time homebuyers who aren't currently citizens of the United States, which brings us a lot of questions. Andrew, why don't you pull up that article so we can take a deeper look into it?
Sure.
The CEO of Hacienda is offering a grant for the first-time homebuyers in the state of Oregon, $30,000. This is only for people, as it's advertised, who are not American citizens. For example, ITIN holders, a DACA recipient, refugees,
Mm,
asylees, green card holders, amongst others, must have pre-approval for a mortgage loan. To me, that's where the number one pitfall is. Because, first of all, you come to the United States, you don't automatically have credit, right?
no, right.
Like, how do you convince a bank to give you a loan? That detail actually makes me think this is kind of like a money laundering situation because,
Really? Why?
well, I don't know. Think about it. And look, this is all allegedly, but just on its face value, just having a down payment isn't enough to secure a house. You have to get a mortgage.
Right.
Um, where do you like? You show up to the bank like, hey, I have 30,000. Okay, great. How's your credit? Oh, you don't have. I mean, I don't know if they have driver's license. Maybe they do. I'm not really
I
sure.
mean,
I'm
some do.
sure the DACA recipients probably do, and there's refugees that do, and green card holders that do. But they're for banks to give you this loan, they're going to want to see some kind of long term commitment, particularly with this political climate. It seems like it's a risky move for banks to give you a mortgage when we all know what's going on. There's a lot of divisive issues out there. $30,000 is not enough. Maybe in some places in Oregon, a decent head start, but you're going to need some other help. It does seem like it is a state tax funded thing based on what this article is saying, which I find that if it was just someone private offering that money because that's their background, it's one thing. But I think it's another thing when it's funded through taxpayer dollars. I think there's a different conversation that you can have there.
I don't understand how that's even allowed, to be honest, because they're allowing people that are illegal immigrants to have access to that 30,000. And like you said, I agree with you. If it was just like a individual or a group of people that have a ton of money that are more than willing to contribute and give out this money is one thing. But I believe this is being utilized money from taxpayers in Oregon, and that's really controversial. And that's what some people have been explaining, especially Oregon State Representative Ed Dial, I think his name is. Um,
Right.
I guess it's this is funded through the state's tax-funded Economic Equity Investment Program, so EEIP. So Oregon citizens that are struggling right now to buy a home, I mean, me personally, I believe they're the ones that should be able to tap into that, not necessarily Hacienda. Although Hacienda can do what they want because they're their own organization, but at the same time, if you're using taxes, then I don't think that's right. I think it just causes more of an issue for everyone in that state, and it's just going to make things more expensive in terms of home prices. But at the same time, I don't think it's right from what I understand from
Well,
what you bring up.
I would pose one question to the comments. We want to hear your thoughts on this. Me and Andrew, we don't know everything, but we do like to, think about things, and we're both fans of philosophy. I guess my question is, unless Oregon has 0 homeless people, how can this make sense?
Right.
If there's one homeless person out there that is a U.S. citizen, wouldn't it make more sense for taxpayer dollars to go to that individual? That is, I feel like there needs to be a safety net in American society. We need an immigration policy in this country where we're bringing in great people, also people in need, but people that are willing to contribute. At the end of the day, if there's one homeless person in Oregon that doesn't have the same opportunity, it's, the question is it right? And I'm not going to answer that question. I want to leave it to the comments,
Yeah, you posed a good question earlier, though, too, about if they're giving this $30,000, how do they qualify for a loan? But maybe in the details, it shows that they can essentially buy with another individual that has credit, has a background in banking and whatnot, and that's how they qualify. But it's not necessarily fair. But I think it's good if we leave it to the comments to see if they agree with this or not. So yeah, that's an interesting story. I'm glad you found that.
Change our mind,
Right. Well, your philosophy is what, though? I mean, I know you didn't necessarily answer it, but what direction would you kind of?
When I first heard about it, I was really thinking, okay, this is a private individual. And he, when you read about his background, the CEO of this organization, if this is his money and he's fronting it, it's actually really kind of in a way, it could be seen as a heartwarming story. He didn't forget his roots. I think whenever you follow the money, ultimately, if the Oregon taxpayers are okay with it, then that's what the citizens of Oregon deserve. But
yeah,
I guess I'll just leave it at that. I don't live in Oregon, so I'm not going to really shed too many tears over it.
Right. Well, moving on to the next topic, I think it's perfectly aligned with what we just brought up here, is now Kamala Harris's proposal, which would need to get approval from Congress should she become president. But did you hear about the $25,000 that she's going to be giving away to first-time homebuyers in the U.S.? And they haven't said yet whether they have to be U.S. citizens.
I've heard about it a little bit. I think I'm a little biased, just for the record. We just bought a property. And so if I find out that in 2025 people get $25,000, I'm just going to be a hater. I'm not going to be reasonable and put forth any good faith arguments about it. But that would have really been helpful for us this year. That would have been a big help. It would have taken care of the closing costs. And obviously this is on the back end, right? This is all tax credits. So to really take advantages in the first place, you have to contribute to society to begin with, because you can't get a $25,000 tax credit if you make less than $25,000 a year, or a little bit more than that, right? Because when you do the math. But I think I ultimately promote the idea of American home buyers. I prefer that over these financial institutions that are buying up property and inflating the cost of living and rent, and also foreign investment purchases. So on one hand, I would like to promote the idea of more families, first-time buyers buying properties, so I can see how it's a good thing in that vein. But I think you raised a good point relating to, is it going to be American citizens? Because if not, I don't know why there wouldn't be more foreign investors investing in property for the first time in America, which is just, it seems like it would be a typical government solution where it's trying to solve a problem and it just exasperates the problem. So that's kind of what you got to look into and read a little bit more. But obviously, this is far from being passed. It is a proposal. We know that during political campaigns, people say things that they never follow
Right.
through on. For
That's
one, because
exactly
they
what
could
they're
be
doing.
unconstitutional. Doesn't mean they won't keep trying. But at the same time, am I excited about it? Got to be honest, we didn't get that. And so I'm going to be drinking the haterade for at least a little bit.
Honestly, I don't think you would have been able to get it regardless, because from what I understand, first time home buyer, as long as your parents, whether whoever you buy with, as long as both people or all people or the person that buys, their parents could have not owned a home either. They would have to be the first generation of home buyers.
Mm.
So I don't think it would apply to you or me.
I think that detail seems a little silly because just because your parents bought a property doesn't mean there's any sort of generational wealth at all. They could have
Mhm.
bought a property and then it could have been foreclosed because of the 2008 financial crisis.
I'm glad you brought
Which
that up. A lot of
yeah,
people assume just because your parents own a home, you must also be wealthy, or not necessarily wealthy, but doing well. But that's not the case. Prices were different then. You're right.
mhm,
Also, the government doesn't know or doesn't probably care if your parents lost their home in the financial crisis. What's crazy is in 2009, I think under George W. Bush, he gave out $8,000 in credit for first-time home buyers. And then, as we know, things still continue to be really bad up until about 2011 from the impact of the Great Recession. But I am totally opposed to it because giving $25,000 to first-time home buyers is only going to raise home prices up. It's going to cause more of a demand issue, and the demand is
mhm,
very high right now. We have to go after the supply issue and bring more homes to the market, bring down the red tape, incentivize builders to build. I think that's the answer, and not giving away 25,000. I see it like Kamal is just saying, "Here's $25,000. Think about this. It's going to happen once I'm in office. Vote for me. I'm going to buy your vote." That's my personal beliefs. I'd like to see what people in the comments think. But I do want to also note that Biden had a proposal at one point. He was going to give away $10,000 to first time homebuyers for up to 400,000 people. Kamala's is way different because not only is it more than double, she's going to give it to 4 million people over the next 4 years, if it passes,
mhm,
of course. I think that's like $2.5 billion per year that the government is going to be spending. That's a
mhm.
lot of people. To a million people receiving $25,000 each, approximately. That's a lot of money every year, and that's a lot of inflation. And that's our tax dollars going to it without knowing whether you have to be a U.S. citizen. More than likely, they'll follow suit with the Oregon situation, I imagine. So I'm against it. I don't know what people think. Comment if you agree with me, or comment if
Mhm.
you disagree with me.
Yep. I mean, I think I think for me it's a major red flag when, and you know what, I gotta say both candidates have been kind of teasing this. To
Trump
me,
has teased it.
pardon,
I said Trump has teased giving away
not
25.
this, not this, but other things. No, you know, they both talked about no taxes for tips and things like. All I'm gonna say is where I'm going with this is I think campaigning on handouts is a red flag because
Yeah.
to me it speaks of buying votes, and I think whenever you implement these policies where you buy votes, it's you're kicking the can down the road. And we've had I don't know if it was two episodes ago where we had a conversation about a couple generations before us, where life was really great for them. Um, you know, how many generations are going to kick the can down the road? I think we're at risk. Actually, we're not at risk. I feel like we're currently doing that to the next generations, where we just
Currently.
keep kicking the can and keep kicking the can, and just for elections, like we're just gonna just to get people elected, we keep kicking this can, and I don't think the result is going to. I mean, I'm 99% sure the result is going to not be favorable economically for the country. You know.
Yeah. All right. Jazz Chisholm Jr. He got traded to my team, the Yankees, in late July. Great news for us as we need him. Second baseman and center fielder. I'm very excited about that. I think a lot of Yankee fans are too. And he's coming from the Marlins. He's a 26-year-old guy. I was trying to think, where would he buy in New York? And I like to always see past clients. I mean, not clients, past baseball players or current baseball players where they've bought. And I see his teammate, Anthony Volpe, recently bought a condo of about $2 million in Manhattan area. So I imagine Jazz Chisholm Jr. will also be following suit. He's a little bit older than Anthony Volpe, but their contracts are relatively the same. It's not a whole lot of money that they got as a Major League Baseball players, but within the next year or two, they're going to be making a ton of money. So with that said, I feel that Jazz is going to buy a modest price point. And I want to share the screen of Anthony Volpe. All right, there we go. All right, Anthony Volpe bought a year ago, it appears, and he bought in a $2 million bachelor pad in Central Park West. So that's a really good area. 1,300 square foot home. I think it was a 2-bedroom, sub-zero appliances, building amenities, has a doorman, a living building manager, a live in-building manager, and a private fitness center. And it's a great unit. So I would imagine Jazz Chisholm would be doing the same thing. I think his contract was about $2.625 million for the first year at the Marlins. And I believe that kind of carries over with the Yankees. So it's a lot of money he's making, but it's nothing nearly as much as like Soto or all those guys or, Aaron Judge. But I want to show where exactly other ideas of where Jazz Chisholm might be buying in Manhattan if he decides to buy a property, because currently I don't think he has. But what do you think, Chris? While I pull that up, do you think he's going to follow the same footsteps as Anthony Volpe, considering they make relatively the same money, or you think he's going to go all out and spend a ton of money?
Wait. How much was that place for 1,300 square foot?
$2 million.
What are people doing?
What do you mean?
That's insanity.
It is insane. But
$2 million and you live in a box?
Yeah, but it's New York. All right, so here are all the options Jazz Chisholm has if he decides to buy a property in Manhattan by Central Park. Looks like everything's ranging from like 1.5 to 2 million. So I know it's a lot of money, like you said. Like, what is he thinking, Chris? But New York is New York. Like, look at this 2-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot for 1.5 million. Is this something you could find yourself living in or no? Considering it's New York.
I mean, it does look pretty nice, I'm not gonna lie, but
it is nice.
I feel like as a baseball player and athlete, you're gonna be so cramped in that damn thing.
He's only 26 though.
Yeah, I mean, 26-year-old could sleep in a box. I know, I've been there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think go play for the Astros, go play for the Diamondbacks, go play for the Cardinals, go play for the Royals.
He came from the Diamondbacks initially before he was at the Marlins. But why do you say that, though? Is that because you have more square footage possibilities out there?
Like, he's making money right now.
Yeah.
He can get a little more, or actually a lot more space. Same bang, treat his body better, a lot more room for facilities in his own home. He can put ice baths and all kinds of things. He can have a backyard, a front yard. He can train better, just having a lot more space rather than being cramped up.
But you're not a Yankee, though, to go out of there.
What's up?
I said, but you're not a Yankee. Look at this. This is listed by David Rosen. David Rosen, if you're watching, we're talking about your listing. He's on the Sirhan team. Looks like it's 48 East 83rd Street, Unit 2R in New York, New York. And I know you were talking about, Chris, about more space if you go to like, Arizona or Texas. But look at the space you got here. Jazz Chisholm Jr. could buy this today. I think it was 1.75. Looks like you have a little backyard. Is this something you could see yourself doing, Chris, if you had to move to New York?
Is this private, and does it not count against the floor plan? The backyard?
It doesn't count as a floor plan, no. In terms of living square footage, I do not think, but we can ask the agent.
And is that private?
I think so. Let's look at the floor plan here.
I will say if that's private and it doesn't count against the floor plan, it's a solid deal.
I think this is a private backyard, I believe. Let's see if it might say. This is actually a really good unit, in my opinion.
Especially if the backyard is not counting against the floor plan, the square footage.
Okay, so it says right here about that unit. The highlight of the residence is the private garden, a rare and treasured feature in Manhattan. So it is a private garden. and it comes with whoever buys this has access to it. So I think it's a great deal then.
Click fact and features. I'm trying to see the square footage breakdown, interior, exterior. Yeah, I think that my decision will be based on those details. I think it's a great deal if the exterior is separate from the square footage that they provided. Then I would tell him right now, secure that thing. If not, I tell him, hey, did you get that contract signed in blood? Can you go to
I agree.
Can you go to the Braves? Can you go to Miami? Actually, not Miami. You're gonna have the same problem. My bad.
No, Miami, you got a lot of space. There's like different
Yeah.
neighborhoods more inland from the beach where you get some square footage for sure. That unit we just saw with that backyard is amazing for New York. I'm so glad I came across it. If he ends up buying it, I think you and I should get like a little referral fee from the agent because we're promoting his listing. But I'm just joking. But that would be
No, he should come on. He should
he
come
should
on.
come on. Yeah, we should bring him on.
Hey,
David
just lie to
Rosen.
him. Hey, lie to him and say you're
David Rosen.
Chisholm's agent, and just get him
Yeah.
on the podcast. And then
I
we'll be like,
know.
yeah,
I know. We should talk about
we
that.
kind of lied.
The actual location is by Central Park. Is there any cool restaurants around there? It's a candy shop.
It's in New York. They
have everything
are gonna
here.
have
But
a cool restaurant somewhere.
yeah, I mean, that's a good spot, man. You got the Central Park right there. How does the building look on the outside? Let's see.
I don't
Yeah.
get why. Look, I've never actually been in New York, right? So I definitely don't understand it
It's fucking
at
cool,
all.
dude.
So you think it's cool?
I
For
love it.
me, I find myself driving around downtown San Diego, and I'm like, it's too congested here. So I can only imagine what New York is like, right? But to me, it blows my mind when I see pictures of like cars parked on the street. I'm like, who's driving vehicles in New York? You're just going to set yourself up for
Yeah,
a heart attack at 50 years old. Like, what
I
are you
agree.
doing? Like, you're trying to find parking, like it's a Seinfeld episode. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Hop in an Uber. Have Uber completely overtaken the New York cab scene? These are questions I want to know. I have no idea.
We got to ask David. I don't really know. I see a lot of taxis still, but I do see Ubers, so I don't know how that works. But a lot of people take the subway, the actual people that live there. But the point is in New York is you walk. The point is to walk and be included in the city. And I think it's really cool in waves. Like I could definitely enjoy living there, but not long term. So it'd have to be like a short stint. As soon as the weather gets bad, you get out, and that's why everyone goes to like Florida, the snowbirds. So, yeah, that's kind of my point and take on it. I don't know how Jazz is adapting to it, considering he had overall great weather in Miami. Besides the humidity, that's pretty terrible. But at least you get the sun and the ocean. And New York, you don't. So,
It's interesting. You said the point is you walk, right? Because we're thinking in New York. New York is like, imagine being a caveman and stepping into New York City, right? And you see all these driving and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And the caveman is used to walking, right?
right.
And you're like, hey, look here, we walk. It's like
Right.
this advancement of civilization, but don't even drive a car around here,
Yeah. Yeah. The only downside with I see you pointed out the positives is walking. The only downside is you're surrounded by a cement buildings. It's like a cement jungle. So it's not really that healthy, I imagine. Unless you got like a rooftop or something, that's cool.
Yeah.
So
Would you ever live in New York City?
I'd like to say no. And I'm saying that because if Melissa ever wants to move there and it's a good situation for her, then I don't know. But I prefer not to. No. The answer is no. I'd like it out here more. It'd have to be
It's never
West Coast or Miami. Florida.
It's never New York has never appealed to me. California did when I was younger, and that's why I eventually moved out there whenever I was 19 or 18. But California appealed to me when I was younger. But New York, it never had that appeal to me. I never thought I guess I can understand why some people are drawn to New York. They feel maybe more safe in numbers. I mean, that is the history of humanity. We survived because we grouped up into these small villages, and it was safer. We could protect ourselves against the wolves. And so some people have this natural instinct to, I'm surrounded by people. I remember one of my friends, he told me in LA, he said, what I like about this city is it could swallow you up and no one would even know about it.
Right.
And when he said that to me, I didn't agree. I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel like I would want that. I don't want to work in a large corporation where I'm just a number. To me, that's not appealing. I would rather make a difference in a smaller way in the people around me than be surrounded by so many people that I'm insignificant. I don't find comfort in that. And some people do, and that's absolutely, a lot of people do actually. Totally fine. For me, I don't like it taking 30 minutes to go to the grocery store to get there one way.
I'm right there with you. I don't like the congestion of an area. It's not great. It's probably not great for your health, but I could see why people feel maybe secure with a group of people surrounding them. But at the same time, have you ever heard of mob mentality and how stupid people can react when something happens? So, when people are in a mob, the whole logical side, rationality can go out the window. So I definitely agree with that. I do not like being around a ton of people, ton of cars. So that's kind of why I prefer not to move to New York, I guess.
But
I am a Yankee fan. I am a Yankee fan, dude.
So, I want to go back to what you said earlier.
You pointed something out about LA. LA is congested and it is bad, but it's not like New York. You look up, you see the sky. You can go into neighborhoods and have a bunch of greenery around you and not see buildings. That's what's cool about LA. It's way different than like Manhattan, New York. You can actually.
Okay, I wanted to point out something you said earlier too. You said my team, the Yankees, singular. My team.
Teams, Yankees and
Angels. You
didn't
say my teams because that would have sounded dumb. You said my team. What about the Angels?
Angels, yes. Angels are still there, but they're not great.
All right, let's cover the Federal Reserve real quick.
So the Federal Reserve has hiked 11 times since 2022 up until 2023. I think it was July 2023. And now they're finally signaling today, August 23rd, I believe it is today. The Fed chairman signaled that they are going to cut rates in September. So that's great news. The stock market went up. Everyone's excited. This is good news. We definitely needed it all across the financial markets because inflation supposedly is cooling down a little bit. We were spot on for the most part, Chris. You and I, we did predict that as we last talked about in the last podcast.
Yeah, and I had this weird inkling. All right, so I'm gonna be the ignorant, naive, my own bubble, just regular average taxpayer. And I'm gonna ask some questions, right? And I'm hoping through this exercise, maybe we can touch some of the viewers. All right.
But you got to remember too, I am probably in that same level as you. So, you can ask me these questions, but who knows if I can answer them, but go for it.
So I remember whenever I was talking about this issue with Sway and Andrew, and I said, look, I don't see a world where we go into this election cycle and the interest rates aren't cut. I'm cynical in the regard that I think that there will be things done before the election that will make it seem like everything's a little bit better than it really is, right? Case in point, the Bureau of Labor recently said, hey, we kind of overstated how much job growth between March 2023 and March 2024. This was recently reported by New York Times and Reuters, and it's become an interesting talking point because there's been 818,000 fewer jobs than previously estimated. And this is according to the Bureau of Labor. And so we've heard politicians talking about how the job growth is great, the economy is amazing.
It's not.
Whenever Chairman Powell is deciding on interest cuts, he's using certain metrics, right? And who's to say some of these metrics could be off? And then the thing I go back to in my mind is, what if the metrics are off? They make these decisions right now. It's great for elections. And then later they go, oh my God, we got it wrong. this whole thing was wrong. These numbers were all wrong. Like, people aren't going to go in the street with pitchforks and demand answers. People will accept it. And because of that, why wouldn't there be numbers that were, a little funny here and there? What's stopping that from happening? Because at this point, I'm really not thinking it's the people. We're really relying on ethics. We're really relying on honest people. And so, is there any way that this situation where we're viewing this data point can be just a little skewed, just to make it reasonable enough to cut the interest rates for the benefit of an election?
It could be, for sure, but the Federal Reserve is supposed to be indifferent from politics. They're not supposed to be subject to any type of politician that they prefer over the other in terms of presidents. But it very much could be what you're saying, because I believe, and it's known, that we've been in like an economic recession for a while, but nobody wants to really talk about it. And I think a lot of that has to do with saving face for the current administration, that everything is okay, but it's not. And that's primarily, I think, one of the reasons why the Federal Reserve is cutting rates, to continue to help the economy going and not have some type of free for all. Because if they do cut rates, it will help improve the market. Unemployment rate has slightly gone up, but what's to say that's, actually a lot higher than what it is. I think it's at 4.3% right now. It's probably way higher. Same thing with like that revision on the jobs. It's crazy, dude, like how they were able to do that, manipulate it. And now that that revision took place. So
And so that's why I made the prediction I did. It had nothing to do with looking at numbers. I would really like to hear Nick's response to this, because my prediction was completely cynical, in the sense that I just, for whatever reason, feel like there's this power where maybe not even a public agreement of any sort, more of a nod of, hey, we have to get these numbers right. We got to get elected, and maybe I'm wrong about it. I just feel like, what's stopping that?
I was looking more at it from the perspective of the metrics and data. The data shows that we are in a situation where, inflation has been coming down, but when it comes to consumer inflation, what we feel, it's actually still very high. And that's why they need to cut rates and, help the shipping industry and the mortgage rate industry, credit cards, all that is still very high. So that's why they need to cut rates. I could see your cynical point, but supposedly they're not supposed to be subject to their political beliefs. But at the end of the day, Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, I believe, is selected by the US president. So if they, are to cut rates or increase rates and piss off the current president, and if they become the next president as well, they could always get fired. But what we've seen with Jerome Powell is he's been increasing the interest rates, and I feel like he's been kind of doing his job in a way by increasing them so high. It was very unpopular to do, but at the same time, there was critiques on him because he was raising rates too late, because he wanted to make the current administration happy, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
By waiting so long, he should have done it way before.
In a society of short-term memory, if you were to really, I feel like there's been almost a consistency in that. And again, this is not just this administration. I think it's happened in maybe all of them, right? So this isn't a bipartisan thing or anything like that. But to me, it's more important what happens not in the last 2 months before an election. To me, it's more important what happens 2 months before that and before that, right?
I agree.
From the election, right? And
but dude, look at like what happened recently. Everyone almost forgot what we've been going through in the economy and the wars and the border, and everything's fine now. Everything, the way things have been marketed and promoted. The least popular vice president is now extremely popular. So people have a short memory, dude. Everyone's like a goldfish memory. Whatever the hell is in that mind.
Well, and I don't even know if that's true, right? I don't even, because I agree with what you just said, but I don't know if it's true. Like, if people have accepted all these things at a 180 turn, I think
so.
I don't know if we have the evidence to support that. I think that it is definitely a goal of many to present that. I just don't know if it's been accepted by the people. So we'll see.
Well, comment below if you guys have accepted that or don't agree with that, that it's actually been changed and people's minds have actually changed to believe that things are a lot different, or it's been the same. Go ahead, close it out.
Hey, thanks for joining us. If you made it this far to the end, we greatly appreciate you. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.